everybody. Let's get it on. Come on. It's a Friday at home in my living room edition of the Sweats presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Lancia. So coming up, what do we have? How about some best bets for now a 3-game slate for the MLB postseason today after Guardians and Yankees were postponed because of Mother Nature yesterday. Who to roster in your NHL DFS lineups? We've got some NBA futures because the regular season starts next week. Also, we'll take a trip to the college football wager wire. But first, remember how terrible the Colts and Broncos were last week on Thursday Night Football? Well, Washington and Chicago last night were like, hey, hold my beer. The Commanders pick up their second win of the season. It was ugly. It was a 12-7 dud over the Bears. But let's not sleep here, gentlemen, Pierce Dietrich and Jeff Ulrich. Let's not sleep on the fact now that Carson Wentz is 7-0 on Thursday Night Football. That is impressive, Jeff Ulrich. What else did you learn last night before we get into some week 6 over-unders?
Yeah, always a good thing, when you're playing on teams that get featured on Thursday Night Football a lot. Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway, honestly, I've been really impressed with Justin Fields the last 2 weeks. I don't think that people realize just how bad the Bears are as a team. I mean, just everywhere. And it was on full display. I'm actually glad that they got a primetime game because people need to see his receivers dropping balls. Like when he's basically won them the game with an insane rush down to the goal, down to the red zone inside the 10. And then his receivers they don't bail. They don't give him any help. They don't even bail him out. They just can't even make a regular catch. And then you've got an offensive line who's the rate of Justin Fields' sack is getting sacked and pressured it's almost historically bad this year. I mean, it is historically bad. The gap between first and second is growing. And I mean, 5 sacks allowed last night, got just demolished on the 40-yard touchdown bomb that he threw, which was beautiful, by the way. So for me, the biggest takeaway, we know what the Commanders are. I mean, they're a bad team. They barely scratched out a win last night. Carson Wentz threw for 99 yards. But the Bears, they have something in Justin Fields. Whether they can keep him healthy is really up for debate. I think that's the biggest takeaway from me. I'm getting more impressed by Justin Fields. I think you should almost treat this as his rookie year. And we'll see if the Bears can build something much like the Bengals did. But right now, that team is it feels miles away.
Yeah, both quarterbacks have actually been sacked a league high 23 times. But Pierce, Jeff could be onto something here because the Bears outgained the Commanders by nearly 180 yards. They had 234 rushing yards, the most in a loss since 84. That was when Walter Payton was still in the backfield. What was your biggest takeaway watching this debacle?
Oh, yeah, it sounds like the Bears are real Super Bowl contenders because they had more yards than Washington. They weren't terrible. I guess one of the things I learned was that Justin Fields is a vegetarian, and that might explain some of them want to make him into a pocket passer. Yeah, he was a pocket passer at Ohio State, but he had an offensive line at Ohio State, and he only had to run when it was absolutely necessary. Well, it's absolutely necessary now. He needs to run, and you see how dynamic the offense looks. They could work in some RPO, give the ball to Herbert, give the ball to Montgomery. The running backs are working, gets the defense off balance. That might help the line out a little bit. That might get the receivers a little bit more open. I don't know what they're doing. Get rid of the pocket nonsense and start running RPO, designing runs for Fields.
Well, here's what I learned watching last night. Amazon paid $13 billion over 11 years for Thursday Night Football. That's nearly $1.2 billion per year. There are 15 Thursday Night Football games per year. So long story short here, Pierce, Amazon paid about $78 million to broadcast last night's game between the Commanders and Bears. So apologies to Amazon, but all sales are final.
They're blowing through the money. They got that Lord of the Rings thing that's not doing very well. I wish they give us some money. Why can't we be on there? Amazon, put this show on 11 a.m. every day.
I think it would be absolutely hot and fantastic. I'm not quite sure the world is ready for that, but I would support it because I like money and work. Let's move on and look ahead to the rest of week 6 here. Panthers and Rams. May not be much better than what we witnessed last night. Matt Rule is out. Baker Mayfield injured. Rams have dropped 2 straight in which they've scored a combined 19 points. Over or under this low total of what is currently now 41. So this started at 42, was at 41.5 like an hour ago, Jeff. Now at 41.
It's low. Yeah, PJ Walker in at quarterback, most likely here. I mean, You know, I mean, just with the Rams are probably going to be able to move the ball a little bit, but they also can't run the ball. So, you know, you worry about. I feel like this is a get right spot for the Rams, and you know, with obviously with the third stringer playing quarterback and with a new head coach. I mean, you have to factor in here, like the new head coach is Steve Wilkes, who went 3-13 with the Arizona Cardinals and was basically terrible. I mean, one of the worst seasons that I can remember in the last few years of just any NFL team. So, like, I don't really see any reason to think that the Panthers are going to get a big boost here. As far as the total goes, I mean, yeah, like 41 points, it seems like a lot for the Panthers to just get like 13 points in this spot. I know that the Rams secondary hasn't been good, but again, you've got PJ Walker back there. Now you've got Wilkes at head coach. I don't see anything really changing around here. I think that the Rams probably win a boring game. They probably win by a couple scores, but it's like 24-10 and this one stays under.
Okay. Pierce, do you agree with that?
Yeah, it'll go under. And the Rams probably won't have any problem. Well, I don't want to say the Rams shouldn't have any problem scoring points at home, but if any team is going to get close to the number that they're supposed to, it would be the Rams. You look at the Rams' weakness on defense, they're having trouble with the pass. Well, you're going to face PJ Walker. So really, I don't see any issue for the Rams defense, and I can't see the Panthers doing anything offensively. And you flip that around and say, all right, the Panthers, what's their biggest deficiency? It's the rush defense. Well, the Rams can't run the ball, but if anything is going to give, I would imagine that Akers and Henderson might actually have a decent day. They can't run against average teams, but I could see the Rams rush attack working against this poor Panthers defense. Firing their coach, losing their quarterback, now having to travel west. It just doesn't look good for the Panthers. Rams are going to win. Rams are going to cover, but I'd say it goes under.
A lot of money coming in on the Panthers for this one, by the way, which I just find really weird. I know it's 10 points, but like, again, I mean, it's Steve Wilkes coaching. It's not like they've got some ringer in there, some leader of men to rally this team. I think that the Rams are going to win big.
Well, it's probably one of those, the first game after a coach is fired, ATS. I imagine the number's pretty strong. Teams cover the spread the week after the coach is fired. Someone have to look that up.
All right, guys. Well, let's forget about the low scoring because that's boring here. Let's get the 4-1-1 on Bills and Chiefs. It's a battle of 30 points per game offenses. This total sits at 54 right now on the DK Sportsbook here, Pierce. Which way are you leaning?
That's a big number. I will go under that. The Bills should be able to put up plenty of numbers on the offensive side. The problem with the Bills is they just come out flat. They've come out flat in a lot of games this season. And so when you forfeit those first two quarters or half of points, it makes it tough to hit the over. But if they come out firing the entire game, they got a good shot. But on the other side, Kansas City's offense has not looked impressive whatsoever. I mean, yeah, Travis Kelce had 4 touchdowns, but he also had, 4 catches? MVS finally showed up. Hardman finally showed up, but they really haven't done anything all season. Juju's been pretty much a joke. The running game has had moments where they look good, but all of that was against some pretty weak to average opponents. You're facing the Bills. The Bills aren't at full strength, and yet they look like full strength. Yep. Heaven help us what this team's going to look like when everybody is healthy for the Bills. Right now, not at 100%. They're throttling teams. And as I mentioned earlier in the week, they're number 3 in the league against short passes. And that's all Kansas City can do right now with Tyreek Hill not on this team anymore. The completed air yards for Patrick Mahomes are at a career low, 5.3. He's just throwing these little dunks. Buffalo can guard those. And you're going to have a long, sustained drive to put points on the board and then finish it off at the end against the Bills. I don't see it happening. I'm going to take the under.
All right, Jeff, I know you're Johnny over here. Is that going to be the case for this game?
No, I'm Ulrich under today, man. I mean, I agree with Pierce. 54 is massive. This is just not the same offense. Pierce alluded to the air yards. It's the perfect stat to bring up because it's true. People thought maybe Mecole Hardman and MVS could do like the mega powers like team up and replace Tyreek Hill. It hasn't even come close to happening. I mean, MVS looks fine and he's fine for what he is, a role player, but expecting like him or Hardman to replace Tyreek Hill, no, I mean, it just has not happened. Again, like I'm just going to basically say everything Pierce said. Like they're doing longer sustained drives. They're leaning on the run game more. And then you have the Bills defense, which is really good. I think that the one way this goes over is the Bills just start the game like they started last week. They put up 14 points, and then we just get into a fast-paced shootout where Mahomes is forcing the ball downfield a little bit more. But even in that scenario, like the Bills defense could take over. They could get a couple turnovers and then they start to run the ball. It's a big ask to get to 54 in this game. I know the offenses are good, but with the way the Chiefs are running right now, and like let's not throw the Chiefs defense completely out the window. They're not very good at guarding its wide receivers necessarily, but like they haven't been the worst. They're not terrible either. So I definitely see this as an under. It's a big total, and it's two prime teams that, you know, the over always gets juice. So I think going under here is the right play.
All right. Well, Pierce, congrats, because Geno Smith's passing yards prop is
great.
It's higher than Kyler Murray's here. These two collide on Sunday afternoon. So Geno sits at a passing yards total. It was 262.5 earlier. Murray was coming in just 1 yard shy of that at 261.5. Not sure how much movement we have here.
A lot.
Wow. Oh my God. All right.
Yeah.
So Geno is 268.5 now. Murray 255.5. Which over are you more confident in betting, and why is it Geno, Pierce?
It's actually both. I've been here the whole time. Welcome to the party, everybody. Geno and Seattle, this offense, it's going to be ugly all season, but it's good that they have a bad defense, because it's going to constantly put them into shootouts and, you know, handcuff Pete Carroll and force him to pass the ball more than he would like to. Plus, he's got running back issues, so he's going to have to pass nonstop. But if you want to hear more about Seattle, you can just check out the DK Nation transcript article or watch one of our previous videos on the YouTube page and hear all about Seattle. One thing I will say about Seattle is the defense is not very good, especially their secondary. Tyreek Woolen has been halfway decent as a fifth-round rookie cornerback, but he's still a fifth-round rookie cornerback. He gets burnt plenty often. The secondary is not playing well. You look at Seattle's secondary, and they're giving up tons of air yards, tons of yards total, passing touchdowns. Both teams are going to surrender a ton of yards. Both teams are going to surrender a lot of points. I like Seattle's offense, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you the defense is good. It is not. It can be attacked. And the Arizona players might actually be a better play in DFS if they had some real receivers. But Kyler Murray is absolutely going to go over this number.
All right, Jeff, over on one, both, neither?
Definitely take the over on Kyler. Again, like yards per attempt and stuff. I mean, Seattle is just bottom of the league. And Kyler has been like, I mean, his depth of target and just what it's been bad, but you have to factor in, I mean, like the lack of receivers. Rondale Moore is now back. I expect that number to go way up. I expect a few more, you know, just deeper passes as well. I think Kyler goes over this for sure. He's also played really well against Seattle in his career. So, you know, you got a couple different factors. I think you get just a repressed total on Murray for what he's done so far to the year, but also, you know, it's not factoring in, you know, Moore is getting more comfortable in this offense. It's going to be his third game back. And I kind of like the under on Geno Smith for the simple fact, this is a big total. It's had nothing to do with the way Geno Smith is playing, but I think that Seattle will be able to run the ball. Like if you're going over, I think you probably take an over on like Kenneth Walker here. I just don't think Geno threw the ball 25 times last week. And the Cardinals will blitz a little bit and put them under pressure. I mean, the blitz more than a little bit. They're like league leaders in blitzing. So Cardinals here as well as a play. So if I'm doing that, you know, I'm thinking Kyler's going to have a good game anyways.
All right, cool. The elite upside of Murray, definitely hard to ignore there. Gentlemen, that's all the time we have, so I appreciate the help with everything. We're going to talk best bets for the ALDS and NLDS. We got 3 games on tap today, right after this quick break. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached game 3 of the NLDS with both series tied at 1 as we head to the other venue now. Game 3, usually the most pivotal here in deciding who advances to the NLCS, so buckle up for that. Oh, and don't forget that we also have game 2 between the Guardians and Yankees today after the contest was rained out on Thursday. And Astros are also up 2-0 now on America's team, Seattle, because Yordan Alvarez cannot be stopped. So let's dive into some best strong play here because Cortez has been amazing at home this season. So what is the move here?
Yeah, I feel like if you take all of Nestor Cortez's stats, whether they be, his 1.95 ERA at Yankee Stadium, he's holding opponents to a 161 batting average at home this season. This is someone who had a career start to the season. He translated that into an all-star game. And then since the All-Star game, he's been even better. He's gotten fantastic. He's been everything you could possibly want. Whereas the Guardians really haven't been able to do two things, together against elite pitchers and elite pitching staffs. So I'm just going to take the Guardians to score less than 2.5 runs in this game. It was actually paying out at plus 105 when I wrote it up for the DraftKings playbook at 2 a.m. I think it's now minus 105. So there's been a little bit of line movement on that one, but I still like the number. I just don't think the Guardians can score that many runs. That was the big question mark with this team coming into the series. And I think the Yankees had the pitching staff to exploit that. Again, particularly with Cortez being left-handed.
Eric, what's the best play on the board in your opinion on the DK Sportsbook?
Yeah, I'm going to end up in a similar place. I think just go with the straight under 6.5 for both teams combined against lefties. Against the lefty, as good as Cortez is. A lot of those new exciting Guardians bats, Stephen Kwan, Andres Jimenez breaking out, Josh Naylor breaking out. They're all left-handed, and it's shown in the stats. This team is one of the worst. They only beat the Diamondbacks, Pirates, and Marlins in terms of team WRC plus against lefties.
All right.
If you want to take them, sure, but I think just nobody's scoring runs in this game.
Yeah. What about in Philly though, Eric? Like what bet do you like in this matchup here? The Braves, small underdog here on the road.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think I'm just going to end up on Phillies minus 115 here. And that's because we don't know what Spencer Strider is going to do for Atlanta in this one. He last pitched September 18th due to an oblique issue. Didn't even resume throwing until October, according to the reports. And there's no rehab games for him to go on at this time of year. So we just don't know. I mean, maybe he's ready to throw 5 or 6 at close to full strength, and they've just been hiding him the past couple of weeks. Maybe. And if he is, he's outstanding at full strength. There was no hints down the stretch that he was hurt. 5 earned runs across his last 4 starts, 44 strikeouts in 25 innings. I mean, there's no chance I'd be picking the Phillies if this was Strider at full strength. But given how much uncertainty there is there with the injury, and that you have probably the furthest thing from uncertainty for the Phillies in Aaron Nola, who's just been excellent, 6.2 shutout innings in his first career playoff game against the Cardinals in the previous round, 3.25 ERA on the season with a 2.58 FIP. In theory, this should be a matchup against 2 aces, but when we only know that one of the aces is at full strength, I'm going to go with that team.
Yeah, Gary, and what do you think here? Can Nola silence Atlanta's bats?
Yeah, I'm not as confident to just take a money line bet here because, again, the unknown of Strider, there's so many outcomes with Spencer Strider in this game. I think Eric's right. It's probably more likely he pitches fewer innings than it is he goes out and throws 6 shutout innings or something along those lines. But with that in mind, I'll just take the over on Aaron Nola's strikeout prop, which I think is 1 strikeout too low, if we're just being honest. It's at 6.5 right now. Nola, since the All-Star break, has a strikeout rate of 30.7%. Since the beginning of September, his strikeout rate is 33.6%. And in September, he actually faced the Braves twice, and he managed 8 strikeouts in both of those games. This will be the 6th time he is facing Atlanta in 2022. The 5 previous starts, every single one he's gone over this prop. And if that's not enough of a sample size and sort of an indication of, that there's a lot of swing and miss in this Atlanta Braves lineup, consider that since the All-Star break, Atlanta has a 24.4% strikeout rate. That is the 7th highest mark in all of baseball. They also have a 12.9% swinging strike rate in that span of time. That is the highest mark in the National League. They are not afraid to swing and miss because they have more than enough power to make up for a strikeout here or there. So I think Nola pretty easily clears this number for the 6th time against the Braves this season.
All right, Gary Bear, we'll get you guys out of here with after we hit on the late game. Features the Dodgers. We got the Padres. What's the most interesting bet on the board for this game? Pitching matchup. We got Gonzel going up against Snell.
Yeah, I really have just been staring at like Tony Gonsolin's Fangraphs page and his Baseball Savant page for the better part of the last 3 hours, trying to be like, why is Tony Gonsolin this good? Like, really, why? What is he elite at? I don't really understand this. He is 43rd percentile in average fastball velocity. He's 59th percentile in strikeout rate. He's 60th percentile in walk rate. He's someone who happened to induce a 207 BABIP this season, yet he's not like Kyle Hendricks, where a lower than normal BABIP makes sense because he's so good at negating opponent exit velocity. He's only like 35th percentile in opponent average exit velocity. So I don't really know what he does. I don't know why he's been this good this season. He's on a pitch count. He's only thrown 2 innings since late August at the major league level. I've got some serious questions about Tony Gonsolin in this game. So I'm just going to take the Padres first 5 to go over a 1.5. I think that's -105. Again, 2 a.m. That was plus money, guys. That was some sweet, juicy plus money. So I'm living in that world, but I'll give the -105 on the show.
So it helps to like not sleep and stay up and just stay glued to the DK Sportsbook is what you're saying with these bets. That's really good advice. I like that, Gary. Eric, where are you going here for Dodgers Padres?
Yeah, I'm also going to end up on the Padres. Let's just take Padres on the money line. I believe it's plus 100 now. I don't know what it was at 3 a.m. I was not checking the lines at that point.
It was plus 105.
There you go. Actually, I think I do know because I think I was putting my notes together a little bit earlier than that, but not too much. I still like the Padres, even if it's moved to plus 100. Part of that's because the Dodgers are only 8th best by team WRC plus against lefties. 8th best is still very good, but the team is the best in the league at hitting righties. So we'll call it only. And if they're not quite the full-on Dodgers juggernaut against southpaws like Blake Snell, that makes the Padres pick more palatable here, especially because I'm with Garion on not fully understanding why Tony Gonsolin was nearly as good as he was. 2.14 ERA versus a 3.74 SIERA. When a gap's that big, it's telling you something. And we don't even know how much we're going to get from him. He missed most of the stretch run with a forearm strain, returned to throw 2 innings in the final series of the season. This might end up looking as much like a bullpen game as a Gonsolin start on the Dodger side. And they do, of course, have plenty of strong arms there. But Blake Snell, terrible performance in the wild card round. Well, terrible, is that overstating it? 2 runs in 3 1/3 innings, but also 6 walks. So pretty poor at the very least. Elite second half, though, 2.19 ERA, striking out 34% of opposing batters, walking just 6%. I'm going to bet on that Blake Snell coming back and go with the Padres at plus 100 or plus 105 if I made the bet at Garrett's favorite time of day.
All right, you two, get some sleep. Thank you. Your job here is done. We truly appreciate it. After a break, we're going to poke over to some NBA futures because the regular season it starts up next week. But right now, how about some NASCAR price check? Pierce Dietrich has returned to help you out with this week's South Point 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
Welcome to the Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at the salaries for Las Vegas, whose salary jumped up this week. Bubba Wallace, $7,200 up to $8,700. He won at Kansas, finished second at Michigan. This car has a lot of speed at the intermediate tracks. Kyle Busch, $8,100 up to $9,300. The first Las Vegas race a long time ago, but he almost won that race. He did score over 100 fantasy points in that race. Christopher Bell, $9,300 up to $10,500. In the spring, he said he had the fastest JGR car. He wasn't wrong. The data back it up. Whose salary dropped this week? AJ Allmendinger, $9,400 down to $6,400. Way too cheap for a college car, a talented driver, and an experienced driver running double duty. Michael McDowell, $7,300 down to $6,200. The analytics say that he has been the 10th best driver in the last 3 intermediate track races. Austin Cindric, $8,600 down to $7,700. He's been a 10th to 15th place driver. Basically, he is 2021 Brad Keselowski. Favorite play of the week, William Byron, $9,700. The scoreboard doesn't show it, but the data say that he has been the best driver in the last 3 intermediate track races. Justin Haley, 5,800, way too cheap for a driver with an average finish of 18th this season. He lacks upside, but he's got a solid floor. All right, guys, check out DK Nation for all DFS information needs. If you got NASCAR questions, find me on Twitter at Race for the Prize. I'm Pierce Teacher. Catch me on DK Live.
Okay, the NBA regular season is upon us, which of course means we got to dive really deep into DK Sportsbook and help you guys and gals make some money. So it's time to talk all things like NBA futures with 2 of my favorites, DraftKings contributors, Nick Friar and Jeff Pratt. So let's break out those balls, gentlemen. Let's break out those crystal balls for this upcoming 2022-2023 NBA season. So right now, NBA champion on DK Sportsbook, Clippers listed as the favorite at plus 550. What direction would you go in here, Friar? And could you give us maybe a little bit of value?
I'd probably try and just steer my way out of LA with this pick in any capacity. I don't like the Lakers, and I like Kawhi Leonard, and I am one of the biggest Paul George apologists on the planet that wasn't in Indiana for the past few years or now in LA. But the thing is, I don't trust him coming back off of 1 year of like just complete rest, just throwing the season away and everything like that. I understand they have some more pieces around him. Obviously, Norman Powell is a good add to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, but I don't look at that team and have a whole lot of faith coming into the year. We've just seen too many times where it's like, there's all this talent, but there's no chemistry. And I understand you can get away with that in some capacity, but I feel like it's asking too much here when there are the talent across the league, whether you're looking in the West or out East. It's really spread well this year like it was last year. Look, I do like the Celtics at plus 600. I think that you add Malcolm Brogdon to the mix. That is a huge addition. I think him coming off the bench is going to be great. And I'll probably talk about him a little bit more later. But the other one, I say all this about drama and teams being a mess, but I do like the Nets still this year, plus 700. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. How much have we heard about Kyrie recently? Like ever since that drama happened in the offseason, it's been all quiet on the Brooklyn front. So I like them a lot coming in this year. And I think Ben Simmons, this is a good situation for him where he can just be the Ben Simmons he is and not the Ben Simmons everybody thought he was going to have to be.
Okay, what's the best bet here for NBA title? Go ahead, Jeff. Are you going to go Celtics as well? I knew you would do this.
I want to talk about the Celtics as well. You know how I feel about the Celtics, Emerson. It actually seems like Nick and I are on opposite pages, which isn't usually the case about the Clippers. I really like LA's prospect, not the Lakers, the Clippers prospects this year. I know that Nick said that the talent is spread well between the conferences. I actually think the Western Conference is the much weaker conference this year. The Clippers have a bunch of really experienced postseason players, including one who carried his team to a championship in Kawhi Leonard just a few years ago. I understand he took the entirety of last season off, but Kawhi doesn't seem like a guy who would just sit around do nothing. We've seen his quads. He's been putting in the work this year.
Yeah, dude.
But besides that, we know how good he is when he's healthy. I'm not really worried about him dropping off. It will obviously all come down to health for LA. Can Kawhi, Paul George, and John Wall stay on the court? If so, they have as good a shot as anyone to win it all. And then just dipping into value real quick. Speaking of teams whose postseason chances depend on health, I actually like the Nuggets at plus 1,800. If Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. can stay healthy, which is a huge if, but this is a really stacked team. So there's some value there.
Yeah, for sure. I know, like looking at the Clippers. So they're not only going to reinsert Kawhi, Paul George, Norman Powell in the lineup, but let's not forget they get the free roll of the services here of John Wall as well. So could bolster an already brimming rotation even further. Interesting. Dude, I'm a basketball guy now. All right, NBA MVP Luca Doncic favored at plus 425. Who's the best bet here, Nick?
Yeah, look, I can understand anybody going with Luca in this spot, but I like Joel Embiid a lot more. Obviously, came really close to it last year. To me, when I look at the improvements that he made in his game, I think those are things that he's going to either maintain or build upon going into this season. The aggressiveness you saw from him last year. I know he didn't have James Harden all last season, and that helped him in the sense that, he had to deal with the whole no Ben Simmons factor. He's, a star working by himself. But I think having Harden there now and how he's evolved his game over the past few years is only going to feed into more into an Embiid's game. And then you look at narrative too. I mean, when we're talking about these awards, I do think that's important. Obviously, that the narrative was partially on Embiid's side throughout the course of the season. And of course, Jokic just came in and stole it. But I think coming off of last year and what he did and how some people thought he got robbed, I think it's his year now.
Okay, Jeff, what direction you want to go in here? Actually, kind of feels like Ja Morant, maybe a sleeper.
He might be. I see a trend building here, though. Nick makes a point, and then I make a counterpoint.
That's good.
I actually do think this is Luca Doncic's year. His team's improved slightly enough to give the Mavericks a chance at a top 4 seed in the West. And if he puts up numbers like last year, 28, 9, and 8, I think this is his award to lose. Looking at his main competitors, Giannis has already won it. If Embiid didn't win it last year, he's not going to win it this year, in my opinion, because I do think narrative was on his side last year. James Harden is going to see a greater uptick in usage now that he's used to this Sixers system. Tyrese Maxey is going to see an expanded role. Tobias Harris might even get more touches as he finds his spot within this Sixers rotation. They added more depth. I think there's a chance Embiid rests more games this year, and when he's on the court, they try to keep him healthy and they don't use him as much as last season. Kevin Durant's going to miss games. Jokic has already won it. As Nick said, narrative plays a huge role in the MVP race, and it feels like that is on Luka's side this year, at least to me.
Okay, Jeff, last one here because we're running out of time. Let's go to Rookie of the Year. This is an interesting futures market. Every year it really is because there's not a big sample size. There's no sample size essentially like with these dudes. So what do you recommend right now?
Keegan Murray's been my pick ever since I watched him suit up for his first summer league game. He's arguably the most polished and NBA-ready player from this draft class, and he also happens to play on the only team with actual playoff aspirations from the Rookie of the Year favorites. If Murray puts up solid numbers as a starter on a playoff or fringe playoff team, which I believe the Kings will be this year, he'll win Rookie of the Year. Sure, there are flashier prospects like Paolo, Jaden Ivey in Detroit, but Murray is in a more favorable position to win this award than any of those guys this year.
All right, Nick, this obviously comes down to talent, but also opportunity with their respective offenses. So who stands out to you right now, dude?
100%. And I think Jeff makes a good point on Murray. I do think that the only other two options really here besides him are Banchero and Ivy. Look, in Banchero, you're not getting a whole heck of a lot of value. You're dealing with a Magic team, right, that they're just going to be largely irrelevant throughout the course of the season. Not a big market either. So I think that's going to make things a little bit tougher for him. The only reason I might lean Ivy a little bit more than Murray is just because I think they're an up-and-coming team. They got a lot of talent, and he's going to be a key part in that if they go and take that next step forward this year. And you're still getting him at good value. And this kid's going to get some buckets this year.
Yeah, Banchero, minimal value, but ton of injuries around him on an already bad basketball team. It was a pleasure to talk to you two about NBA futures. Welcome back NBA season, right? Next Tuesday, going to be y'all Celtics hitting the floor. So I'm looking forward to talking to you two much more over the next, essentially the year because the season's way too long. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll see. We'll talk to Paul about who to stuff inside your NHL DFS lineups after this. All right, let's get right into this sticky buck thing right now. Paul Bruno, come on over, baby, because we need you for some best DFS and sportsbook plays. What do we got? A small 4-game slate tonight. When's the damn league going to fire? Benajad, Stamkos, a few big names on the board here. What do you want to do?
Yeah, I don't mind spending up at the forward slate today. Two of these guys, though, they have a tough matchups. Gaudreau versus Tampa, and he's minus Laine. That's going to dampen his value and my interest there. Zibanejad and Winnipeg, Connor Hellebuck lines up as the goalie, and they got a pretty stout defense there too. Land on Steve Stamkos versus Columbus. Yeah, I think the Jackets' defense is below average, and they took a hit with Laine, like I said, being injured, so their offense is going to be a little lesser than expected. So I think they're vulnerable to Stamkos and company. Premier scorer still, and he's a big threat on that power play. I also like Sebastian Aho and the high-octane offensive depth of the Hurricanes and against a very thin-looking Sharks blue line and certainly below-average goaltending. So there's 2 picks among the premium guys that I'll be focused on.
All right, let's go back now on the blue line, dude. Best DFS play here. See Adam Fox cooking.
Yeah, I like him, but I'm going to say that I find a better matchup for a guy like Moritz Seider against Montreal. Okay, Montreal did take out the Maple Leafs on opening night, but that was all on emotion. I really think this is a very thin team that Seider and company are facing. Detroit's much improved, I think, heading into this season. And I like the cost for Seider. $5,300 gets you a guy who is going to play all kinds of high-leverage minutes against a very poor-looking defensive setup on the power play, especially. So I think he takes advantage of that. I also like, if you want to save a few bucks, I'll go contrarian a little bit by looking at Vladislav Gavrikov of the Blue Jackets. I panned their matchup a little bit, but you get this guy for top 4 defensive minutes and regular shifts on their top power play, which still should be pretty effective as it's guided by Johnny Gaudreau. And that's going to be their best chance to produce against the Bolts tonight.
All right, what about goalie? Whose price do you like here? I see Tampa Bay, largest favorite on the slate. So Vasilevsky in line for a win.
Yeah, that's one consideration for sure. I think he's going to be highly owned. I look for another big mismatch, and I land on Carolina versus San Jose. I'll remind your listeners that hockey coaches don't often share their choices for goalies that start during the game day skates. So we'll all have to wait a little bit later today to be sure. And what I recommend is going over to RotoWire. How about that for a plug for my boys? And checking out their starting goalie grid. It shows Freddie Anderson at $8,300 while his backup Antti Ranta costs $200 less. I think those are the ways to go tonight.
All right, dude. Let's go to the DK Sportsbook. Favorite money line or puck line bet? Hook me up.
Well, the Rangers look very good in their opener versus Tampa, and I expect more of the same as they use a big edge in team speed against a slower Winnipeg lineup. Take the visitors here at the +100. I also, if you want to take a shot at an upset, I'm going to be tempted to say go to the +145 and Montreal winning in Detroit. I think the Canadians might still be feeling good about their opening night win, and that could feed into some early success for them. Particularly, I don't see Detroit being a -170 favorite. I know they're good, but I don't know that they're -170 good against anybody yet.
What about your favorite goal total? We'll get you out of here with that.
Favorite goal total? I know people will see the Rangers and the Jets and think that 2 of the league's top goalies could match up against one another, but I really like the top 6s on offenses here, and I think they could go wild in an early season start. I think offense goes ahead of defense in the early going till the structures get in place a little later on in the season.
Paul, love you. Mean it, man. Enjoy your weekend. Good having you back. Talk some hockey. We'll see you on Monday, okay?
Thanks, Emerson. Same to you, buddy.
All right, my dude. Everyone hang out because we got some college football odds to discuss with Colin Sherwin coming up right after Jesse and Jules help you out with a little NFC East matchup on Sunday Night Football between the Eagles and the Cowboys. A little KFC showdown coming at you. Hope you like chicken.
Jesse Cofield here along with DraftKings contributor Julian Edlow. Welcome to this week's Showdown Spotlight presented by KFC. Eagles and Cowboys get it on in primetime this weekend in an NFC East rivalry match. Both of these teams off to solid starts with Philly still undefeated through 5 weeks and Cooper Rush leading the Cowboys to a 4-1 record. So who are you making your KFC bucket pick this week, Julian?
Yeah, I'm going with the obvious choice here. I'm going with Jalen Hurts, quarterback for the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. I think you could get a little bit cute on this slate with the pressure that the Cowboys might be able to get. Philly's dinged up on the O-line. If you wanted to go with one of the Dallas running backs and the Dallas defense, I think that would be contrarian. But I'm going safe with Hurts. He's getting points in every game, whether it's with his legs on the ground or through the air. It's a good Dallas defense, so I think that pass rush is kind of going to help Hurts get out of the pocket, generate some points on the ground, and obviously through the air, he'll get there at some point.
All right, who's the player you're stacking with your bucket pick, Jalen Hurts?
Going to go with his main wide receiver, A.J. Brown. He's been a difference maker for this team, getting a true wide receiver one in there for the Philadelphia Eagles. Tougher matchup against Dallas, but we know Diggs likes to gamble and go for some of those interceptions. That could lead to a deep ball for A.J. Brown. I think he gets a long touchdown in this game.
All right, thank you, Julian, and thank you for watching this week's Showdown Spotlight presented by KFC. Order all your family-style favorites and keep your team fueled all season. That's finger licking good.
Dude, sadly, Colin Sherwin, what are we? We've reached the midway point of college football already. It's kind of depressing, but I am really excited because we're starting to rev up here some of these big, beefy games. And I want to get into some of these spreads with you right now. And honestly, like one of the most underrated games of the week could be Michigan and Penn State here, man. Like Penn State, number 10 in the country, looking to knock off the 5th ranked team in the nation. Wolverines 7-point favorites last time I checked. So who do you like?
I like the under. Look, I think people are just hitting. Forget the sides on this game. That 7. Sometimes that 7 is pure as the driven snow. Just take the 7. But what I really like here is under. Michigan is 9th in defense in S&P. Penn State is 6th. We're looking at weather, rain, wind as high as 20 miles an hour in Ann Arbor this weekend. Get me out of here. I don't think these teams are going to combine to score 50. Just try and avoid the overtime because I really think that this is one of my stronger plays of the week. I am just under here on both these teams. I think these defenses are ahead of these offenses. It's pretty clear. It's Big Ten football in October. Like unders are never going to be a bad play, and especially this one.
How about number 9, Ole Miss now, like 6-0, Lane Kiffin? Give me that, dude. I mean, they're going to be facing Auburn. So you know this, these programs are on opposite paths like right now. So any reason to doubt that Ole Miss can not cover, 14.5 points?
I would play this up to maybe even like 24.5 points. I mean, maybe not that far, but it's terrible. Look,
I got you.
Auburn has quit. They have straight given up. They are waiting for their coach to get fired. We have pre-written Brian Harsin getting fired. He's going to get fired. It's just a matter of when. The players know it. The community knows it. It is ridiculous to leave him twisting in the wind like this. He hasn't exactly been a rock star over there, but they're not doing him any favors. Somebody just get these two. Somebody get an AD and a coach and an agent in a room and negotiate this thing and get it over with. He's done. Meanwhile, Jackson Dart gets better every week. He's a fit for Lane Kiffin. I really like Ole Miss here. I play this huge. I think this turns into an absolute beating.
All right. What about Alabama, Tennessee? I mean, it's another great SEC matchup here. Tennessee, 6th in the country. Alabama, 3rd in the country. Alabama getting a few scares early on here, dude. And you know what? The Volunteers, they look like a legit threat right now. Yeah, no, it's for sure. Look, I believe in this team. I believe in Hendon Hooker. I've got Hendon Hooker number 2 on my Heisman ballot right now. If Bryce Young goes, the whole key to this game is Bryce Young. If Bryce Young plays, this number seems pretty right to me. If he doesn't go and somehow Jalen Milroe starts this game, I will put your mortgage, my car, and everything that I own on Tennessee +7. And there are some places you can even find some 7.5. If you're going to give me 7.5 against Jalen Milroe with Hendon Hooker, the biggest game in Tennessee I can't even imagine how long. They haven't won this game. They play annually. They haven't won this game since 2006. Okay. Nick Saban is undefeated against Tennessee. But Colin, the only thing I'm going to say here, dude, Vols have yet to face a team as seasoned as the Tide, but Tennessee does have the benefit of playing in front of one of the best crowds, home crowds in college football. The Vol Navy is going to be out there. There's going to be 100,000 people going. That's game day is there. You've got a veteran quarterback who can help lead this team. There's a veteran offensive line and a veteran quarterback for Tennessee. They get enough stops. It's not great. Their defense is questionable in spots, but they get enough stops. I really think Josh Heupel is going to be in the mix for Coach of the Year with Lance Leipold. And give me Tennessee here. Give me Tennessee all day, even if he doesn't play. And if Jalen Milroe goes, obviously I'm putting my house on it. Yeah, it sounds like your house and a lot of other people's houses as well. Yeah,
trying to just double your net worth in one day. That's all we're trying to do here.
No, I appreciate it, man. That's why we bring you on here, man, to help everybody make money. All right, so we got 4 more games though, too, dude, that feature a matchup of top 25 teams: USC, Utah, Oklahoma State, TCU, NC State, Syracuse, Mississippi State, and Kentucky. So of these top 25 matchups, which one interests you the most when it comes to betting on the DK Sportsbook?
So if there's still some USC plus 3.5s out there, I think that number is going to get to 3 or even 2.5, I think, before kickoff. So I'm going to go ahead and take at 3.5. I'm going to take the Trojans. Look, this Utah team is really good, but they're not as good as last year's team. And we've seen that in multiple spots. Cam Rising has made some mistakes, especially when the pressure is on. He threw that pick at UF, threw a terrible pick at UCLA. He is home for this one. But it just feels like that when Utah gets in a box, when they get in close and light situations, they really struggle. Meanwhile, USC is doing the opposite. They're just putting teams away. And the talent gap here. Every time, USC is still under handicap relative to the talent that they have on the field. Offensively, that offensive line is elite. I think they've got my Heisman choice right now, which is Caleb Williams. And Jordan Addison can just make plays against these corners at Utah. Their front seven's really good, but their secondary can struggle at times. And I think Addison's just going to go off. So I will take the 3.5 points here and give me USC.
I mean, Utah's the ability to make this a scoring showcase. So what do they average? Like 40 points a game, and like USC's offense, for crying out loud, rarely sleeps on that.
And USC's defense, and let's keep in mind, USC's defense is bad here. I mean, there's this total's 68, 67, somewhere like that for a reason. Like, these defenses aren't great. It's going to be a shootout, whoever gets the ball last. And so give me the points when it's whoever gets the ball last.
I like that Williams call too, because he's got right now 14 touchdowns, like 1,600 yards, just 1 pick. So good stuff. All right, thanks for hanging out with us. You nailed it. You are a sidekick, like we were talking off camera. We didn't get to the last question, but you absolutely crushed the rest of this segment. Appreciate you, dude. Everybody else, that is the show. Thanks for hanging out with us. It was amazing to see you on this Friday. I'll be back in studio with Jesse Cofield on Sunday. We got a whole hour of NFL goodness coming at you, starting at 11 o'clock Eastern time. We've got the slate tonight, 5 o'clock. Matt Lamarck is going to be on there. I love you, and I mean it. I got to go take care of my dog now because she has a UTI. We'll see you later.